Dr. Ted Naiman, the P to E diet. Key points, part 3. What to eat to cut body fat.
It's the protein to energy ratio. And ribeye is about a 1-to-1 food. It's got 1 gram, a serving of ribeye is 22 grams of protein and 22 grams of fat. And it has this equal grams of protein and energy versus nuts. Almost all your nuts are at least 5 grams of fat to 1 gram of protein. So you've got this 1-to-5 protein to energy ratio with nuts and this 1-to-1 ratio, which I think is actually optimal for maintenance with ribeye. So I think, steak and eggs is the ideal maintenance diet. These foods are both right at 1-to-1 equal grams of protein and fat. And that's probably why steak and eggs is like my favorite food on the planet.
If you disregard everything we said today and you've been to like Weight Watchers or a traditional dietitian, they said, hey, look, here's your energy expenditure, your resting metabolic rate. You just need to be in a deficit of 300 calories per day. Once you lose body fat or lose body weight, your resting metabolic rate goes down. So then to be in a deficit, you have to decrease your calories even more. So it seems like a dog chasing its tail to the point of no return.
And like you said, if you're just looking at calories, it's depressing as hell because you can only eat, 2 calories a day. And personally, I think the way out of that is an insanely high protein percentage. This is just one more reason why I'm focused on the protein to energy ratio rather than calories. I would encourage someone with a huge amount of adaptive thermogenesis to crank their protein up, maybe up to 50% of calories. You're going to be able to be weight stable or even continue to lose at a much higher caloric intake. The thermic effect of food is going to be higher. Energy expenditure is going to be higher. You want to diet down in the highest calories you can get, and the way to pull that off is to make most of them protein. So I really, really, really like the protein energy ratio better than calories. And that's really why I'm such a carnivorous fan of animal foods, because you always have a higher nitrogen to carbon ratio in animal foods. It's just basic science, just trophic level. Like the plant can only absorb so much nitrogen because its roots don't reach very far. The animal comes along and eats 1,000 plants and just concentrates all the nitrogen. You have bioaccumulation. All the minerals get bioaccumulated. All the nitrogen gets bioaccumulated. And then you get, orders of magnitude higher levels of micronutrients and minerals and protein in an animal food than you do in a plant food. Raubenheimer and Simpson, the guys who came up with the protein leverage hypothesis, did this giant meta-analysis where they looked at 130 different studies where humans ate an ad lib amount, but somebody tracked their macronutrients. And they were trying to figure out at what macro ratio do humans eat the very, very least energy. And it ends up being at about 2 grams of protein to 1 gram of energy, with carbs quite low. So your very, very lowest energy intake is sort of 2 grams of protein to 1 gram of fat with very low carbs. That's pretty much ground beef. I mean, that's
80-20 or
that's
whatever.
like a grass-fed ground beef. That's like 85-15 would be about a 2-to-1. I tell people who are trying to lose weight to target sort of a 2-to-1 protein to energy. I think that's kind of a sweet spot. Now, you can go higher, but then people are hungrier and they have to cheat more on top of that. I think 1-to-1 is a really great maintenance zone, and 2-to-1 is a really good aggressive fat loss kind of zone. It appears to me in my clinical experience that you can eat all the red meat you want without having to worry about it. I also don't think there's a real association between red meat and cancer. I mean, look at Argentina, where they eat twice as much red meat as we do, and they have half the rate of colon cancer. So what I am worried about when it comes to colon cancer is insulin resistance, because people who are insulin resistant have double or triple the rate of colon cancer of people who aren't. And basically, insulin-like growth factor, IGF-1, grows these adenomatous polyps that end up turning into colon cancer. And so your best strategy there is to be as thin as possible. And how are you going to do that? Probably 2-to-1 red meat. You're basically eating your whole cow, you know what I mean? I think that's a really good strategy for being as thin as possible. That's going to lower your cancer risk more than anything. Basically, any properly raised animal product is awesome. And in the book, I just recommend the hell out of grass-fed beef and pastured eggs and wild caught fish and seafood. And anytime you're just eating a whole animal that was properly raised and ate what it should eat, I think you're completely winning. Become aware of where the protein to energy ratio of your diet is, and you slightly raise it gradually in a progressive and sustainable fashion by just making little food substitutions. So you're basically just like making small intentional food swaps and replacements in a way that you can sustain it and progress it. And it really does work. I mean, it's like these small gradual changes.
It is the protein to energy ratio. Ribeye is 1-to-1. Nuts are 1-to-5. Steak and eggs, Dr. Naiman's favorite, 1-to-1. And by the way, a reminder, energy is carbs and fat. A calorie deficit diet causes your resting metabolism rate to go down. Besides, if you just look at counting calories, it is as depressing as hell. Dr. Naiman says, I focus on the protein to energy ratio, not on calories. He recommends protein at 50% of your calories. That will help you lose weight at a much higher caloric intake. In other words, you don't have to experience hunger. To diet on the highest calories you can get, make most of them protein. Plants only absorb so much nitrogen. Animals concentrate all the nitrogen. You get higher levels of micronutrients and minerals and protein in animal foods. At what ratio do humans eat the least energy? 2 grams protein to 1 gram energy, and having low carbs. For example, 2-to-1 protein to energy, ground beef. Trying to lose body fat? 2-to-1 protein to energy is the sweet spot. Maintenance is 1-to-1. There is no association between red meat and cancer. People who are insulin resistant have double or triple the rate of colon cancer. Dr. Naiman recommends grass-fed beef, pastured eggs, wild fish, seafood. What is the process of losing body fat? Become aware of your protein to energy ratio, and then slightly raise the protein by substituting foods over time. You can feed your muscle or feed your fat. It's your choice.